But let's get into our keys to the game. So, key number one. Key number one for Oregon against Washington. This is, again, a key to win big. Not to win. Oregon could go 0 for 3, batting 0, getting an F, all those sorts of things. 2 out of 3 would technically be an F, so maybe it's better to do a batting average. But you go 0 for 3. An afternoon where the fans of the ballpark are saying, wow, that guy stunk today. He didn't even put the ball in play. And Oregon can still win this game because they've got the advantage in just about every area. Heck, they've got a special teams advantage, which I'll get to in just a moment. Stop Jonah Coleman. Jonah Coleman is really good. And when I have watched Oregon's defense this year, I think they have been more vulnerable defending the run than they have defending the pass. Now, that's splitting hairs because they have been great in both areas. And there is still, well, Billy Edwards Jr. hit the 200-yard mark by 6 yards. So he and Will Howard are still the only guys. Quarterbacks are 2 for 11, throwing for over 200 yards. I do not expect that to change in this football game. I talked on Wednesday's show about how this is a capable Washington receiving corps. Denzel Boston and Jeremiah Hunter, those are real receiving targets. They throw the ball to Jonah Coleman every now and then. You'll see him get involved on a screen pass or two. But when he's running the football, he'll have a couple carries in this game, just be warned, where you're going to be impressed. I have been a big Jonah Coleman fan for a while. He was an important piece to bring from Arizona up to Washington with Jedd Fisch. Arizona's offense since Fisch left stinks. And Washington's is, well, it's not great. But this says more about Jedd Fisch, the head coach, than it does Jonah Coleman in particular. Because Arizona lost a bunch of other guys. An NFL receiver, Jacob Cowing, who's a return man for the 49ers, a starting offensive lineman for the Packers, their running back, their leading tight end. They lost a bunch of guys. But if you want to know what to think in the long run about Jedd Fisch at Washington, I think he can succeed. It's a matter of whether he sticks around. Because if he builds Washington back up to being at a conference championship level, which we know they can be at, well, what if Billy Napier regresses next year and he goes back to winning 4 or 5 games and Florida says, I'm out? Jedd Fisch will be one of the top candidates for that job, especially if he's got Washington on a majorly upward trajectory. So Jonah Coleman is a really important piece for this offense, particularly because they don't know what they're doing at quarterback. Will Rogers has had turnover problems this year, and Damon Williams hasn't actually started a football game. He's played in a bunch of them, but he's like Aiden Childs. You know, he gets a series every now and then to make sure that he doesn't transfer and to get him some experience going into next year because they know, well, he's going to be the guy of the future and this season isn't going to amount to much anyway. That's what they've been doing with him. He could start in this game. Will Rogers could start in this game. Whoever it is, now Washington's offense under Jedd Fisch is at its best when it has a running game and they can incorporate the play action. So stopping Jonah Coleman, or at least keeping him contained, you keep him under 100 total yards in this football game, I have a hard time seeing Washington putting up 2 touchdowns or more. So that's key number 1. Key number 2 is protecting Dillon Gabriel. Oregon's had a bye. The offensive line should play better than they did against Wisconsin, and I thought they were fine against Maryland. They did allow a sack or 2, which is the standard that Oregon has set up front. Like, talk about a high bar. You say, yeah, Gabriel got sacked in that game. The offensive line stunk. He was under more pressure than that, particularly in the Wisconsin game, than the numbers are indicative of. But protecting Dillon Gabriel is key number 2 because he's got Tez Johnson back, and he doesn't need to be thinking about anything other than, hey, where do I want to go with the football here? Because that's when he's been at his best. When, as Jake Butt, who called the Oregon-Maryland game, put it to me, I never know where Oregon's going with the football. Well, I don't either. It's a lot easier to predict where he's going with the football, though, if he's got pressure in his face. So when he has time to sit back there and slice and dice, I think that's when this Oregon offense is at its best. I'm done expecting. I'm still hoping to see the running game pop off for a 175 to 200 yard effort. I'm still waiting for that. I would love for it to come around, but I'm not getting my hopes up about it. So what do you need to have for the offense to therefore be at its full potential? If you're not going to go for 200 to 220 on the ground, you have to be able to give Dillon Gabriel time to create explosive plays, to push the ball down the field. As Washington secondary's got a couple of guys, they're also They've been good. They have been really good defending the pass this year. I don't know that they have seen a passing attack necessarily as good as Oregon's. I mean, they saw USC is not anywhere as good. They should be on paper, but they're absolutely not as good as Oregon throwing the football this year. I'm trying to think. Washington State, maybe. John Mateer's a good quarterback. Got a couple good receivers. Our old friend Chris Hudson is up there having a good year for the Cougs. Yeah, those are kind of the top teams passing-wise. Penn State, I don't have a lot of confidence in Penn State. So I'm curious to see how this Washington pass defense that's been really good this season matches up against this Oregon passing offense off of a bye. I expect them to be better. I would like to see at least 80% or so of what they were against Michigan or Illinois or any of those big offensive explosion games this year. So that's key number 2, protect Dylan Gabriel. Key number 3, force turnovers. This is one that I will be disappointed in the defense. If there isn't at least one, there should probably be 2 or 3. So if Will Rogers plays, he's got a 14-7 touchdown interception ratio this year. Not great. He started off the season as well, protecting the football through the first half of the year. And over the second half of the season, they've played more and more of Damon Williams because Will Rogers has had issues protecting the football. Inaccurate throws, bad decisions, getting hit as he throws. There are a lot of ways for Oregon to create turnovers in this game, which is why I listed as one of the keys. Because I don't trust Washington's defense enough to where I feel like they can get a quick 3 and out if, Will Rogers has got him at midfield and then Oregon, gets an interception and returns it to the 45-yard line of Washington. I don't think this Washington defense is going to be able to just get Oregon immediately off the field. So I think they can bend but not break, and they've been good in the red zone this year. But they don't strike fear into me as an Oregon fan as someone saying, well, Washington's defense is going to be tough to move the ball. It can be if Oregon makes it tough, but I don't think Washington can just get off. Like if Oregon were to, let's say, throw an interception, Dylan Gabriel's been known to do that from time to time, and they move the ball down to the Oregon 45 or 40-yard line, total confidence that the Ducks can get off the field in that spot. Seen them do it. They did it against Purdue where the Boilermakers would run it down the field, they'd move, and then all of a sudden they'd stall. And that has been a hallmark of this Washington offense. Get down the field, and once you get close to scoring the football, it all goes awry. So if you force turnovers, there are just a lot of different ways to do it. Picking off Will Rogers, you could have a young quarterback in Damon Williams starting at Autzen Stadium. You have an offensive line that has not been good this year against a great Oregon front, talented secondary, Jabbar Muhammad against his own team. Bryce Betcher gave a quote saying how much he hates playing the Huskies and wants to beat them and such, and it's his last time to do that. There are just a lot of factors. So if there are no turnovers in this game, I'd be a little disappointed unless, of course, Oregon keeps the Washington offense under 10 points, in which case I say, all right, you get a pass. My score prediction, I've got Oregon 30-13. 19.5 is a big number. It's still a rivalry game. Oregon's a better team across the board. I fully expect the Ducks to win. I hope they win by a lot more than that. In a rivalry game like this, you probably swallow the points. 30-13, Oregon wins. I'll give Washington a cover here, but I think this is a big day for the defense. Let me know your score predictions. Drop them in the YouTube comments below or hit me up on the old Twitterverse.